everybody. Today we are debating whether or not creationism makes testable predictions, and we're starting right now. Ladies and gentlemen, thrilled to have you here. This is going to be a blast, folks. It is an exciting day today. I really enjoy these, and I have to let you know, we have both, you could say, experienced veteran debaters on today, both of which are linked in the description, and also want to let you know these guys, they've been through it before. This is you could say, retaliation, vengeance. They're going at it again. So this is a brand new topic. We've never gotten to have this one. If you are new here, consider hitting that subscribe button, as we have a lot more debates coming up that you won't want to miss. And if you hit that notification bell, you'll be reminded of them. For example, not this Monday, but the following Monday, we just confirmed it, like seconds before we went live. Got an email back from Destiny, where Destiny will be coming on Monday, November 11th, to debate praise on whether or not Trump is racist. It's a juicy one, very provocative, and we're not going to take much time. We want to get right into this. So, very excited. Whether you be Christian, atheist, Republican, Democrat, we're glad you're here as we try to build an eclectic community. And we're going to have Tom go first today. So basically a quasi-formal debate. It's basically a 5-minute opening from Tom, then a roughly 5-minute kind of response from Standing for Truth, then 40 minutes of open discussion, just how you like it, followed by 5-minute closings, and then Q&A. So if you have a question, feel free to shoot it into the live chat. I will pull those questions out of the live chat into a list. If you want to do a super chat, you can basically fire that into the live chat. It'll go to the top of the list for the Q&A, and also it allows you to make a comment toward one of the speakers during the question and answer. So with that, very excited to have both of you on. Thanks very much to Standing for Truth and Tom for coming on today. Tom, I've got the timer set for 5 minutes, and the floor is all yours.
All right, so the topic we're debating today is whether or not creationism can make testable predictions. And the reason we're looking into this is we're trying to figure out, is creationism true? And the way we establish that is the same way we establish anything is true. We have to have some criteria to differentiate whether or not whatever is being proposed is imaginary or real. And so we need some way to differentiate between what's imaginary and what's real. And anything that can do that is evidence. So we need some criterion to do this. And the criterion science uses is predictions. Novel testable predictions, and that's what we use as evidence. And so can creationism make these novel testable predictions and demonstrate that it's not just an imaginary explanation that's been made up like phlogiston, and it's a real actual thing? So what does this mean when we say we need novel testable predictions? Well, there's infinitely many ways to explain anything. Any phenomenon, event, occurrence, observation has infinitely many reasonable ways to explain how it happened. For example, imagine we see a cup fall over. What could have caused this to happen? Well, maybe it was the wind, or someone bumped the table, or maybe it was caused by a mouse or a squirrel or a bird, or it could have been caused by a meteorite falling from the sky or invisible aliens. Maybe somebody used psychic powers to knock it over, or magic. Maybe it was a ghost or a fairy or a leprechaun or even a god. Maybe the whole world was created 5 minutes ago with the cup already lying on its side, and the memories of seeing it fall are just illusory. Or it could have been created 6 minutes ago, or 7 minutes ago, or 8 minutes ago. We can come up with infinitely many ways to explain how the cup fell over. But how do we determine which of these infinitely many ways is the best explanation? Well, all of them all of the infinitely many explanations, except one of them, are the truth, or except one of them are imaginary. So there's only one truth, and all of the other infinite ones are imaginary. So we need some criteria to differentiate between which ones are the imaginary, which ones are the real ones, or justified ones to believe. Now, one approach is to take all past and present observations, everything we know about the event, and see which possible explanations can explain all of the data. However, this approach is fundamentally flawed because using ad hoc reasoning, all past and present observations can be explained by all of the different explanations. For example, if we saw mouse droppings around the cup, and if my explanation was that a mouse knocked over the cup, I could of course say, well, clearly the mouse knocked over the cup and left the mouse droppings. However, if my explanation was a mouse did not knock over the cup, I could say a mouse came and left all the mouse droppings and walked away without knocking over the cup, something else being the cause. So any explanation could explain the observation we see of the mouse droppings after we see them. And we can always say this for any observation. We can make any observation consistent with our explanation, no matter what it is. So we can't use past or present observations as the basis for determining which one's the best, because they can all explain all past and present data, which means we have to use future testable predictions. We have to be able to predict into the future something we don't currently know, And if we can do that consistently and reliably, then that's a good reason to believe whatever our explanation is the best one. So if you can say something like, given my explanation, I can predict something that we will discover in the future, which we don't know yet, which the other explanations have not anticipated and will only be able to explain ad hoc or post hoc after we discover it, that's the best explanation. So, and the predictions can't just be any predictions. You can't like predict, I predict the sun's going to come up tomorrow. Like that's not very good because anybody can predict that. It's already something we know. So the predictions have to have certain kinds of criteria to qualify as predictions to be evidence. For example, I can make the prediction there's going to be a man named Bob in that direction, and you can look in that direction. If you don't see Bob, I can say, well, you just haven't looked far enough. You got to go farther. And you keep looking, and you still don't see Bob. I can say, well, no, you just got to keep looking, keep going, go, go, go. And I can say that ad infinitum. Just keep saying, well, if you haven't found him yet, keep going. And since that prediction can never be proven wrong, that isn't a good prediction. So it's the predictions you make have to be falsifiable. You have to be able to say, Bob is X distance away, and if he's not X distance away, then I'm wrong. If you can't say that, it's not a prediction. Also, the prediction I could make would be like if I said the sun will rise tomorrow. Like obviously, everyone can predict the sun's going to rise tomorrow. It's something we already know. So you can't just predict things we already know. You have to predict something we don't know yet, something novel. Also, I can make the prediction that billions of light years away, there's a teapot floating in space. Like, even if that may be the case, because we can't actually verify that it's correct, it's not a prediction. It's not useful because you have to actually show it's correct before it actually counts as evidence for your conclusion. So the predictions have to be verifiable. Also, I can make numerous predictions at random, just like the next lottery ticket number is going to be XYZ, and just keep making predictions, and eventually I might get one right. But the fact that I can make numerous predictions isn't evidence, even if I get one right, because anybody can just make like infinitely many predictions and happen to get one right. That's not evidence of anything. So the predictions have to be precise, because the same thing applies to like allegory and parable, because they can be interpreted in many different ways. That's the same as making many different kinds of predictions, because you can just pick the interpretation that seems correct and say, you see, I got it right. When in fact, it can be interpreted in many different ways, and most of them were wrong. So the predictions have to be precise. And finally, even if I'm able to make such predictions as I've described above, the explanation I may be accrediting may be different than the one that actually worked. So it has to be the same explanation I'm using has to be able to be used by others to also make other predictions that can be confirmed. It's called peer review, which doesn't just mean that they confirm the same prediction, can make the same result, but that they can use the same model to make other predictions. So in conclusion, for predictions to count as evidence, they must be repeatable, falsifiable, novel, verifiable, precise predictions that are confirmed by peer review. And if you can do that, if creationism can do that, then that's evidence for creationism being true. And that's the question we have here today. Can creationism make those kinds of predictions?
Excellent. Thank you very much, Tom. And with that, just also want to mention before we go into the discussion format, it could be something on my end, but I think it might be that your mic is making kind of like a popping or a crackling, like a click sound. It's kind of loud, Tom. So just in case, I mean, we'll see if Standing for Truth has it coming through too, in which case it's probably my side that's making it happen. But it definitely, there's like a loud clicking that's like slightly abrasive on the ears. We will next go over to Standing for Truth for 5 minutes or so. And glad to have you here, Standing for Truth. The floor is all yours.
Awesome. Thanks so much for setting this up, James. Thanks so much to Tom for doing this debate. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I listened to his opening there, and he's looking for specific criteria to differentiate between what is imaginary and what is real. And this is going to be determined by evidence. This is how we can distinguish between what is imaginary and what is real, as he stated. Do we make novel predictions? The answer is yes. And he states that there are infinitely many ways of explaining anything, right? You can post hoc, ad hoc, reason almost anything. So Tom here wants testable predictions that only future observations can prove to be either true or false. So no post hoc and no ad hoc. Anybody can predict the sun would come up. I agree with that. So if I get into things like there exists massive geological evidence that demonstrates sufficiently that the Earth's layers and rocks are young, fast erosion rates, worldwide sedimentary strata deposition, pancake layered rock strata, cold rock slabs deep in Earth's mantle, indicating a worldwide global flood. These things he may accuse me of as post hoc and ad hoc reasoning. So let's get right into it then. Let's satisfy his criteria. Now, there exists so much evidence for biblical creation, especially in genetics. That's why we can utilize so many different fields of science and make predictions that are testable. Genetics is where the war is won today. And this is because traits are inherited, not bones found in the dirt. The term genetics, for example, wasn't even around during Darwin's day. This is how primitive Darwin's understanding would have been. But this is what's inherited in sperm and egg. Sperm and egg don't pass on a fossil. They pass on an instruction manual, an information system. If we want to find the history of humanity and the origin of species and look at the biblical base model, we need to look at DNA. Evolutionists need to look at DNA as well. We have in all of our cells, for the most part, DNA, and every generation, sperm and egg cell pass on DNA. As we know, and I'm sure Tom here is not going to dispute, DNA changes. There are mistakes that occur. This is a regular process, and therefore we have a clock. All we need is a regular repeating process. In the case of genetics, every generation changes happen, as I've stated. This is basic. Now, if we add up this over, let's say, several generations, there's a history that's then recorded. And because of this, we can look at people around the globe, animals, species around the globe, for example, how many differences exist, DNA differences, that is. For example, how fast does the DNA change and mutate? We literally have a clock in which we can use calculations to test whether or not we humans look young. Do we have an abundance of genetic differences? Has the clock been ticking for a lengthy time or a short time, as creationists would predict? And what we actually see in our DNA is amazing evidence suggesting that we have not been around for millions of years or even hundreds of thousands of years. Why? There's too few DNA differences, and we can make novel, testable predictions based on this data. And we have. It looks like we arose genetically just 6,000 years ago. This is shocking to most people. But this is science. And so we see one of the main arguments against creation is creationists can't make predictions that are testable. This is 100% false. We have and do meet the gold standard of science. We are the ones making the predictions. How do we respond when evolutionists such as TJump tell us creationists, we can't make testable prediction? Well, this question can be answered in a number of successful ways. Many creationists have put in print testable novel predictions, claims about the natural world from which we do not yet know the answer, claims about the rate at which DNA mutates, predictions on the rates at which species form. There are numerous predictions, literal predictions. And what evolutionists are constantly asking for, they're asking for claims that future observations could reveal to either be true or false. And we've made these. One of the claims made by creation scientists, specifically Dr. Nathaniel Jensen, that have been put into print is, hey, look, here's a claim for humans. For example, take African people groups. Nobody has yet measured a particular type of rate that certain DNA mutates in African people groups. There are numbers, yes, literal numbers that says, hey, they're going to change their DNA at this rate, this many changes per generation. There are actual numbers in print regarding these types of predictions. We're just waiting to test them. This is something that we can go and test, like I've said. And the title of this debate is, do creationists make testable predictions? Well, at the end of the day, this was an easy win because whether my opponent agreed or not.
Forgive me, I just realized that I don't know how long you went over 5 minutes. I just looked back at the clock and I realized it ran out. So I'll give you maybe another like 30 seconds if you can wrap it up. And,
yeah, let me just sum up this one prediction then. That's cool.
Thanks so much.
So this is just one then of the many testable predictions made by creation scientists. So we can discuss this one, of course, jumping into the discussion. I've got many more. I mean, at the end of the day, we could probably just end it here and call it a day, but why ruin all the fun? So let's get into not only this prediction, we can get into other predictions. If he wants to talk about something other than genetics, whether it's astronomy or geology, we've made accurate predictions in almost every scientific field. So for now, that's all I'd have to say.
You bet. We are ready for the open discussion, gentlemen. Thanks so much.
All right, first you said my mic was making a weird noise. Is it still making the weird noise? Does
Nope.
Standing hear it?
It's crystal clear now.
No,
All right,
yeah, it sounds pretty good to me. I don't hear anything.
all right. Was my intro made sense? It wasn't like you didn't like, cut out my audio or anything?
No.
No, I heard it all. I made some notes. It looks like you're looking for,
I mean, I'm just one sec. Just I'm checking because the James said something about my mic was making a noise. I just want to make sure that's not happening. As long as that's not happening, we're good.
nope, all
It's
good.
not anymore.
All right. So yeah, yes, you can definitely make predictions like but that isn't the kind of prediction I'm looking for. Like I can predict that if I pray to this Pastafarian spaghetti monster, that a gold brick is going to appear in front of me. That is a testable prediction. But remember, one of my criterion is that you have to have peer review. Other people have to be able to use the same model to also make predictions. So the fact that creationists have come up with ways that they can seem to make predictions doesn't do anything, because no one else can use this model to make predictions, or the ones they do come out to be false consistently. So like, just like I can say, I'm going to pray to the spaghetti monster to get a gold brick, that's technically a prediction, but it's not the kind of prediction I'm looking for. It doesn't meet the criteria that I outlined in the introduction. So you would have to give some kind of methodology of how you got that, which can then be used to make other kinds of predictions by actual scientists that aren't creationists.
Well, for example, some of the most divergent of African people groups, for example, the Khoisan peoples, their mutation rates have not yet been measured. So what I just explained in my opening there, in my brief opening, is that creation scientists have actually made really, really precise and specific predictions on how fast their DNA would change or mutate according to
Right.
what we know about genetics. Therefore, that is like me pointing at some random guy on the street and saying, hey, do you play baseball? And he says yes. And I say, this is how far you're going to hit. That is how precise and specific this prediction is. And therefore,
right. But that's, I mean, apologize to interrupt, but yes, I can make a precise prediction right now that is super precise, that if I pray to the spaghetti monster, a gold brick is going to appear in front of me in 5 seconds. That is an extremely precise prediction, but no one else can use it to make other predictions. It's totally ad hoc and arbitrary.
Of course we can, because, for example, I'm sorry to interrupt, Dr. Nathaniel Jensen is using observed mutation rates on non-African people groups and coming up with accurate retrodictions of their mutation rate, which actually points to biblical creation. Now he's using that observed mutation rate to make predictions on African people groups that have not yet been measured in regards to their mutation rate. Therefore, evolutionists can do the same thing. We can literally get swabs of their DNA and test this and see if it's true. Therefore, if it's not true, that could falsify that specific model and that specific prediction.
Well,
so that is
my criticism here. My criticism here is that the scientists have to be able to use his model to make predictions.
Oh,
not just
of course.
him. It doesn't matter if he can do it; they have to also be able to do it. The scientists have to look at the information.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I don't think you understood my point. So that observed mutation rate, scientists in the field of evolution or in the field of, say, creation science, they can use that observed mutation rate, and they can make predictions on not only African people groups or non-African people groups. They can use it on species. They can use it on animals.
Well, that's the part. My understanding of the reason his position fails is because it's arbitrary. Like, his model doesn't actually make accurate predictions. He's just making them up. Like, when the scientists actually look at his model and try to use it to make predictions, they get the wrong results consistently. They can't do it. It's inconsistent. That's the criticism of his position. The scientists can't use his model to make predictions. It's too inconsistent.
Well, here's the thing. It's not inconsistent because some of these predictions, the genetic related predictions, they've already come true. Now, the ones on the Khoisan peoples, they haven't yet because we're still awaiting the data to confirm whether or not that's true. But just recently, we've, based on predictions, mutation rate predictions on animal species, they've actually come true. Now, let's...
Again, that's not the criticism I'm using here. So you can definitely make predictions that come true. I can predict that a gold brick is going to appear in front of me from the spaghetti monster. And even if I get that right, that still doesn't count as evidence until the same methodology can be used by other independent sources to show it worked. So my criticism is that even if he makes a prediction about the genetic decay rate of people in Africa and gets it right, until he presents a methodology of how he made that prediction, and that methodology can be repeated by others who are not him and who are not creationists, then it's not evidence because it's just his made up system.
Well,
like,
we're using...
Like if I like shook a magic 8 ball and got a result and it happened to be right, I could just shake it again, and if it doesn't get a result. So the problem here is that how do other people use his model to make results? And they can't. That's the criticism. Scientists
Oh, no, no.
look at this model and
No, we
find it
can
doesn't work.
because we have mutation rates on various species, on various people groups. Now, if we use that, whether it's pedigree-based studies, we can use coalescence calculation.
I'm granting that. I agree with that completely. That's not the criticism. I can
If this
say,
is a future, yeah, but the title of this debate is "Do Creationists Make Testable Future Novel Predictions?" This is a future novel prediction. This specific one hasn't come true yet. I agree with that.
No, remember, the criteria I gave, one of them was must be confirmable by peer review. That is one of the criterion for it to qualify as a prediction. His data is not.
And this can be, for example, we've made predictions on the rates at which many different species have formed. For example, our model, just wait, I want to finish my thought here. I understand you don't agree, but this is
you're missing the point. You're missing the point. I'm sorry. But
no,
remember,
I think you're missing the point, actually, because this is a future novel testable prediction.
I understand exactly what you're saying. I'm sorry, but no. So remember, in my introduction, I said a peer review does not just mean confirming the same results. It means using the same methodology to make different predictions.
1 second.
So they have to look at his method. They have to be able to use it to consistently make other predictions, and they can't. That's the problem.
Right. No.
One second. Standing for truth. I'll give you a chance to respond, but the live chat's let me know that the clicking is kind of back. Let's see.
I think it might be coming on Tom's end.
It's
you hear clicking right now? Is there any clicking?
It's gone, but it's as you're talking, there's definitely a clicking that's coming through. I mean, I don't think they're all hallucinating because I hear it too. But it's just like we can still hear what you're saying. It's just that it's a little bit like it is a little distracting. But we're still able to get your arguments in case we can't get the what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, as Reed Nice Wonder says, it seems to be only his hypothesis is that it seems to be only when you're talking more. I think it's maybe when you're talking more loudly, when the volume's picking up on the louder volume, or the when the mic is picking up on the louder volume. I think that might be what's like triggering it. I'm guessing. As everybody at this channel knows, I'm not an expert in audio. So thank you all, by the way, for sticking with this channel when we had that 2-month-long spree of audio meltdowns. That was embarrassing.
Right now?
Yes, we can hear you. It's softer, but I don't think that it would trigger the clicking.
All right. Is it louder now?
That sounds. I think that's good. I think that probably did it. And then staying for truth. Sorry to.
Hear me?
Oh no, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, we want to make sure that everything's coming through nice and clear. Now, my point is that creationists do have many testable predictions that future observations could reveal to be true or false. He wants it to be peer reviewed. No, I understand. You want it to be peer reviewed. These are the one that I'm about to give. They can be verified through multiple different, if we're going to use this methodology of mutation rates or looking at our mitochondrial DNA or nuclear DNA, evolutionists can do this, creationists can do this. And just because Dr. Nathaniel Jensen himself has done a specific prediction on the Khoisan peoples, this can also be repeated by whether it's scientists in the creation field or the evolution field, because mutation rates, looking at genetics, it's just in its infancy. So these accurate testable predictions, if the evolutionists aren't making accurate testable predictions in the realm of genetics according to their model, then they're the ones not making the testable predictions. I mean, what testable predictions are the evolutionists making in regards to these types of DNA, this DNA data? Do you know?
Yeah, 1 second. So James, can the audience hear me just to make sure?
I think so. It looks like whatever you did worked. It's crystal clear, and there doesn't seem to be any clicking.
All right. So again, everything you just said is factually provably wrong. The scientists have objectively said no, they cannot use Nathaniel Jensen's model to make predictions. His model is fundamentally flawed. It's like using a magic 8-ball or a broken compass. You can get it to point wherever you want. That's the criticism. The scientists have looked at it. They found it's completely flawed. They can't use it to make predictions because it's inconsistent. So when you say the other scientists can use it, no, they can't. They've all said they can't. That's the problem.
Well, actually, in regards to here, I want to go. The scientists won't look at it, and here's why. The big picture of it all that I'm trying to get to is the fact that we can literally read the history of civilization that's written in our DNA. And this is literally a head-to-head prediction that is testable for both evolutionists and creationists, and yet the evolutionists don't actually want to go and test this. And this is why. It's because they have a basic assumption that if evolution is true, history, as you know, goes back 200,000 years, right? The first modern humans, and then about 6 million years to the common ancestor of humans and chimpanzees. But if we actually think about the last 3,000 years, Tom, and the history of civilization, that's just the tail end of a long, long, long timeline, according to the evolutionists. So this is just a little time, a little blip in the moment in time that you can hardly expect to see any type of genetic signal. But that's why we've made predictions that this genetic signal, if creation is true, should actually be detected. And we can actually look at events. Well, it's kind of technical. I don't want you to interrupt. You can give me what you think when I'm done it, but we can look at something recent in history, okay? For example,
what is his name? What is his name? Nathaniel Jensen is what you said?
Nathaniel Jensen, yes. So he's working on this right now. Dr. Robert Carter is working on this right now, but we can even look at something recent in history. For example, look at the sad history of the transatlantic slave trade, okay? Here we have millions of Africans forcibly moved against their wishes and moved to the New World. They are now forced to speak other languages than their own language. Essentially, they're speaking European languages, right? But yet genetically, we can clearly see they are African in origin, and obviously history confirms this, okay? So here's the question. How different are they from modern Africans? A piece of biological information that plays a very significant role in these predictions, Tom, and in this debate in general, which is what I'm kind of getting at, is the DNA clock, okay? Every generation, mistakes are added to our DNA sequence. The copying process, as you know, it's not perfect. It's imperfect, this process of genetic mistakes. Now, during the process of sperm and egg and the copying process, mistakes happen. I know you understand this, but if someone were to compare my DNA to my two kids, for example, we would see differences that are not found in either myself or my wife. Anyways, you know, we can look back in time based on these genetic mistakes and based on genetic clocks. So we go back to history and we know the transatlantic slave trade begins around 1500 AD. It's outlawed mid-1800s. From this point forward, the Africans that are brought over into the New World don't have much contact with Africa. They are separated and separated for about 150 years, maybe a little more. This is numerous generations, Tom, for the African-American clock to tick in the New World, independent of Africa. And in 150 plus years, several generations for the African clock to tick within Africa. And so African-Americans and Africans have been getting much more different from one another for the last many years. We should be able to read and see that signal. And guess what? This is a prediction that can only be true under a creation model. And we are already seeing this genetic signal. These genetic markers are in our DNA. You can also see it in with the Genghis Khan Empire, the Roman Empire. This shouldn't be true if evolution is true, going back millions and millions of years. It should all just be a jumbled mess. So evolutionists can go and test this, but they won't, because they don't expect that signal to be there. Yet the signal is there. How do you explain that, Tom? And why don't you go make some predictions on it?
Okay, so I just Googled it. I just found about 24 scientists who've looked at this research, including PZ Myers, who have just proven you false. So yes, they have looked at it. They have tested it, and they've
no, they haven't looked at this signal. No, they haven't. They haven't tested this.
This is exactly what they're saying. They're saying they looked at every one of his data. They went through his lectures. They talked with him. They read his books, and they say his model is failed. So yes, they have looked at it. So when you said they aren't willing to look at it, that's completely false. Yes, they have. They've done it, just like I said they did, and they found it's inconsistent and doesn't make predictions. So the only ones who have actually looked at it is Dr. Stefan Frello. There's been a very extensive written debate. So I just found one by PZ Myers. I just proved you false. You can find.
Okay, so what did PZ Myers say that actually apparently debunks or refutes his predictions in his work?
I don't have time to read through the many pages that I just found on
Google.
Because
I have. He hasn't looked at this. For one, the information that I'm talking about is going through peer review right now. So there's no way he's in the peer review process. I'll tell you that much.
Well, if it's going through peer review right now, then yes, he probably hasn't seen it, but he has looked at the books he's already published, as I said, and found no, it does not make predictions. So no, nothing Nathaniel has.
This data will go through the peer review process, and it will come out as a confirmed testable prediction. Okay, it's already confirmed, but you want to see it on paper in technical form. That is the topic of this debate. Do creationists make testable predictions? The answer is yes. Do they make novel confirmed predictions? The answer is yes as well. I'm not. Your
So again,
criteria has been met.
I've already just ended that completely. So I just said, no, Nathaniel Jensen's model cannot be used to make peer-reviewed things as confirmed by over a dozen scientists that I just Googled and found, including PZ Myers. So no, his is not qualified. And the one you said he is in peer review, that one might be. I don't know. It hasn't been published yet, so I can't judge it. But all the ones he's published so far have failed the test consistently every time by every PhD scientist who've looked at it. They're like, nope, this doesn't work. So his is not a testable prediction because it isn't confirmed by peer review as stated by the people doing the peer review.
Okay, for one, whether you agree with it or not, a testable prediction that only future observations will tell us if it's either false or true has been made. So I've met that criteria.
It has to be peer reviewed. If it doesn't peer reviewed,
It's through the peer review process as we speak. Now,
then I mean that's I could just say there's a paper proving that I'm a god in the peer reviewed process. That's not evidence until it actually passes the peer review process.
well,
So if it passes, yes, that's great evidence. Happy to accept that. But until then, it's just not.
so you're just not happy with the fact that we don't have the technical peer-reviewed paper in front of us just yet telling us that, hey, we can see the genetic signal in our DNA. That's what you're not happy. If you see that technical paper that has passed through the peer review process that's showing, hey, we can detect the history of civilization, Genghis Khan's empire, Roman Empire, transatlantic slave trade in our DNA, which evolutionists say should not be expected, you will be happy with that confirmed prediction you're saying.
Well, yeah, after it's peer reviewed and passes the peer review process, yes, that's exactly what I'm asking for.
Strict peer review process, so it should be out soon. But I'll definitely be sure to send that to you. But I'll say, even in regards to species, months after speciation predictions have been made, we've actually seen in Darwin's finches, the finches on the Galapagos Island, people have been studying these finches for a number of years. We predict that species should be continuously forming. And guess what? New species have actually been confirmed just recently in finches. And these new species have been published. You can read the published article on it. And evolutionists are shocked by this because, well, as you know, it's supposed to take millions of years. When we run the numbers, the rate at which species are forming, for example, we take this new observation, extrapolate it to the whole globe. This translates, Tom, to an average of 3 to 4 species, new bird species.
Sorry, but you're pontificating again. So no, evolution does not take millions of years. There's lots of examples of macroevolution where species completely change to completely new species over very small generations. We have lots of examples of that. Just go talk to Aaron Ra. I had an interview with him on where he just listed like a dozen of them. So, but scientists have already confirmed that.
But they're not making specific predictions on the rate at which these species are forming. We've made specific predictions. We're saying on average 3 to 4 new species per year. And we've just seen that these calculations, we're running them. We can run them back. According to our model, we can run the numbers for young Earth creation and factor in the roughly 11,000 bird species on the planet, Tom, that we have today. There's about 4,500 years since the flood. And of course, we see the species of bird came from, let's say, a handful of bird kinds on the ark. 11,000 divided by 4,500. This is basic math. It gives us 2 or 3 species per year. This is exactly what creation
I know what you're saying. It's here, same exact problem. Until it gets through the peer review process.
No, that one has been. That one has been. But because we're taking this data, Tom, and we're taking these recent observations that have been documented on the formation of new species, and we're making predictions on thousands of other species that have yet been measured. That's the whole. Now we're taking that data, and any scientist can go and take that data and now make predictions on other species on how they.
That's the part I'm saying no. That's the wrong part. That's the part that is completely rejected by every single biologist anywhere in the world. They say no, creationism can't provide that. That's why it's not accepted. If it could do that, then it would be real science.
Right, but they can. I just proved to you that
Hold on one second. Standing for truth. I just want to be sure that Tom was done with that point. I know sometimes it's hard to tell, but go ahead, Tom. You have more?
No problem.
So again, the reason creationism is rejected everywhere in the entire world by all serious biologists is because it can't do exactly what you're saying. If it could, it would be real science. Scientists don't care if creationism is true or not. It doesn't matter if it's true. They just care about what does the science say? What do the facts say? How do we verify things with evidence? They don't care which thing is correct. So the reason scientists don't accept creationism is because it can't do what you're saying it can do. There are a bunch of creationists who have published creationist papers and say they can do this, but when you actually try and pass it through peer review, it's proven false consistently 100% of the time, no matter what. throughout all history. Now, maybe the new papers that are being published, they could be right, and then that would be evidence. I'm happy to concede that, but I'm betting it's going to be like all the past ones, which completely fail on every single test. So you
Well, no,
you
no, no,
need to
because
actually.
okay, no, no, you finish your thought. Finish your thought. Go ahead.
No, I'm fine. Go ahead.
So I would disagree because I would say that the rate at which these species are forming is directly in line with predictions made by Dr. Nathaniel Jensen. The predictions he's made on the African people groups are based on straightforward mitochondrial DNA coalescence equations. They not only reject the evolutionary timescale, they confirm the 6,000 year timescale. His exact quote, his prediction that's on print, okay, I'm going to read it out. He has stated, Dr. Nathaniel Jensen has stated, no direct measurement of the mitochondrial DNA mutation rate has been performed in the most divergent African people groups. Now, he says this, I expect, here's his prediction, that the rate in these groups will be on the order of 1 mutation per 5 to 8 generations or faster. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised, Dr. Jensen says, if these divergent African lineages mutate twice as fast as the non-African lineages, 1 mutation per 2.5 to 4 generations. Now he goes on, he says, now let's make the predictions of this model even more specific. Even more specific. If all modern human lineages trace their genetic differences to ancestors who lived only a few thousand years ago, and this is what I explained earlier. I know it's technical, but he says it here. He kind of puts it in a bit of a nutshell. He says, then the history of civilization must be recorded in mitochondrial DNA. Must be. If it's not, that's falsified.
One second.
In other words,
Standing for truth.
I'm almost done. If what I've described is true, then the Roman and Mongol empires, the Greek conquest, the Persian Empire, and so many other events in recent history must have left their stamp in the mitochondrial DNA. This hypothesis is tested, Tom. I don't know what more you want, man.
So I've already covered everything you've just said. You said that like 4 times, and I've already granted it and proven it doesn't work. So like I can say, let's take all of that you just said and say I made a prediction of all of that, and the way I did it was I shook a magic 8-ball and that number popped out. I mean, if shaking a magic 8-ball, which is an inconsistent method, if you can't show the method is consistent, then it's not evidence. So it doesn't matter. All of that stuff you said, I can just grant it, say, yep, still not evidence, until he can show his method is consistent by having it go to the peer review process. Until the scientist can show his method isn't just bullcrap like shaking an 8-ball, it's not evidence, even if I grant it's right. So again, you have to go through the peer review process. You have to show that scientists who are not creationists can use the same process to make predictions, which has not been done ever. That's the criticism. So it doesn't matter how precise his predictions are. It doesn't matter how new they are. It doesn't matter how many times he thinks he can make them or what other things he can do. Until it's confirmed by the peer review process, it is exactly nothing.
Okay, so I'm going to need you to...
One sec, standing for truth. Tom, there's the clicking. I think if you talk like a little bit more quietly, I'll crank up your volume on my side, and that might help. And then I just want to be sure that you have plenty of time to respond to Standing for Truth, because Standing for Truth has had a good amount of time, and I want to kind of bring as much balance as possible in terms of time. Do you feel like you've had enough time to be able to address?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay, thanks so much.
Awesome. Yeah, of course. Take as much time. If I'm interrupting, just let me know and I'll stop. So it's just a lot to say. A lot of this is technical, so you're trying to explain it the best way I can for the layman to understand. I think that you're going to have to, for one, cite all your criteria, and you actually cite the papers, because from what I'm saying and the title of this debate, do creationists make testable predictions? These are future testable predictions. I agree that according to your criteria, they don't meet your criteria, but they are future testable. Future observations can tell us whether or not they're true. The history of civilization, Dr. Nathaniel Jensen has assured us that it is detected in our DNA. Yes, the paper itself is going through peer reviewed, but I think you just shot yourself in the foot, because once it actually goes through peer reviewed and I can show you physically the technical paper, well, then you're going to have to admit that yes, creationists make future testable predictions that are actually confirmed. And this is right in our DNA, nuclear DNA, mitochondrial DNA. Anybody can look at this and mimic those same types of testable predictions.
I mean, that'd be great. I don't have any problem with that. Like, I didn't shoot myself in the foot. That's the criteria of evidence. If creationism can do that, I'm happy to grant creationism. I don't care if creationism is true or false. I don't care how old the world is. All I care about is what's true. So if you can do that, that's great. The problem is that it's never passed the peer review process. Nothing in creationism has ever passed the peer review process. It can't be used to make peer-reviewed predictions. You asked what to list all of my criteria on. 1 second while I pull up the thing. Oh, work.
Are you familiar? Are you familiar with any of the confirmed?
One sec. Just to give Tom a chance to find this and then make sure he gets this point out. And then sorry to do that, standing for truth. It's just that we've given you've had a lot of airtime. I just want to keep it as balanced as possible. I appreciate your criteria.
So the criteria are repeatable, falsifiable, novel, verifiable, precise, confirmed by peer review. All of those.
Okay, yeah, and it meets all those.
No, again. So 0 creationist predictions have ever passed the peer review process. It's done right there.
Right. Now, I'm showing you current predictions being made in the realm of genetics. Are you familiar with the creationist predictions that have been made in the past in regards to geology, astronomy, that have been confirmed after the prediction was made? Are you familiar with those predictions?
Nope.
So, for example, a couple that I can go over is there have been predictions made. Dr. Russell Humphreys, for example, he made predictions based on the creation model.
I apologize. I want to interrupt. Apologize. But again, I don't care if they've been confirmed. I don't care if they're just repeatable, just falsifiable, just novel, just verifiable, just precise. If it hasn't gone through the peer review process, it amounts to nothing. So what you need to do is give me a scientist, an atheist, non-creationist scientist who can use the creationist model to make predictions. That's what I need from you. Show me that atheists can use this to make predictions.
Atheists can use, because guess what? We're living in the same world, and these predictions have been made on the strength. Yes, and they've been made on the strength of several planets' magnetic systems. Okay,
this is not relevant. You need to show me an atheist who can use the creationist model to make predictions.
This model can be used to make predictions on the strength of the planets.
Just to give Standing for Truth a chance to kind of finish, and if
he's not even letting me go over these predictions.
I know.
No, the 1 second. I've already granted every one of your predictions.
Stuff's technical, Tom. You got to give me a minute to explain it.
You're not getting it. I'm sorry, James. Stop. So again, I don't want to hear any more of your predictions. I can grant all of them. I want you to give me an atheist who can read the creationist paper, use the model. The atheist can make the predictions. I don't want to hear creationist predictions. I want to hear an atheist who can read the creationist paper, use the model to come to consistent predictions. That's what I need.
This model can come to.
1 sec. I'm just. I want to. Hold on 1 sec. I just want to. I understand that. It totally makes sense. Is that if Standing for Truth takes a minute or two and he goes through it, it's totally okay to just at that point say, hey, Standing for Truth, you didn't do what I asked you to, and kind of show the audience how he didn't. But just to give him a chance,
I've done that 4 or 5 times. Every time he's gone through his little pontification.
Yeah, but all you've had is arguments from authority.
So hold on 1 sec. Is that he's just beginning? So he's only getting 10 seconds into it, and if we let him go 60 seconds and he doesn't do it, then for sure point out. But it's just that it's kind of early to jump in.
All right.
Fair enough. Okay.
Sure.
Okay, here's a solid one. We all believe in plate tectonics. Prediction, give me 60 seconds. Cold material near the Earth's core. This was the prediction. So in the early, I believe it was the 1980s, physicist Dr. John Baumgartner, he developed a biblical creation model based on the worldwide flood for the rapid motion of the Earth's crust during the flood. Now, his theory, his model, what it predicted was that cold crust located beneath the pre-flood oceans should have sunk to the floor. Okay. Now, this crust would have melted if it had millions of years to reach the base of the mantle, sinking as slowly as today's rates. If we look at today's uniformitarian rates, it should have melted. On the other hand, if it sank quickly 4,300 years ago, according to the flood model, as this theory suggested by Dr. Baumgartner, then piles of those plates should still be found at the base of the mantle, cooler than the mantle around them, okay? Guess what? This mantle was discovered after the prediction was made, but it took more than, I think it was 10 years, because they had to develop the technology of seeing something like that at the base of the mantle. So when that technology was developed, the cold material was discovered, just as Baumgartner's model had expected. So
again, none of that even answers what I asked. So you haven't provided anything I've asked for. So
of course, geologists can make predictions based on plate tectonics, just like he's done, based on geology.
All you said is, here's a creationist who made up a model and said he can make predictions. So I can say, here's an astrologer or a homeopath who made up a model and they can make predictions. That's great. I don't care about any of that. What you need to do is show that the scientists, the atheists, the people who don't agree with your model can use the same model to also make predictions. You need an independent source to peer review that same thing isn't just made up nonsense gibberish. It doesn't matter even if you happen to get it correct. That's
It's
great.
been peer reviewed.
Other people have to do it. No, it
It's
hasn't.
been
That's
peer
the point.
reviewed. It was. Are you trying to say that the creationist John
No,
Baumgartner
let me
himself came
clarify,
up with the
let me clarify.
data? This was discovered by seismologists.
Let me clarify. The results were peer reviewed. I grant that. The method was not. That's what needs to be peer reviewed. The method needs to be peer reviewed, even if the results are correct.
Are you saying the method of discovering these cold slabs needs to be peer reviewed?
No. The method of making the prediction needs to be peer reviewed. So we can.
The method of making the prediction was peer reviewed.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was. That's the point. Yes, it was. All you're doing is making baseless assertions. Hey, PZ Myers, who has been challenged to a debate by Dr. Nathaniel Jensen, who won't do it because he can't debunk or refute Dr. Nathaniel Jensen's work.
Not relevant.
You're not even getting the arguments he says.
Again, so
you're just saying I'm wrong. That's it.
No. So again, every biologist in the world agrees with me on this. Creationism does not make predictions. Now, the creationists think it makes predictions. They claim it makes predictions. That's great. When you actually look at the method they're using, it's like shaking a magic 8-ball. You get whatever results you want. So the criticism isn't that like you can predict things, and maybe they're right. That's great sometimes. But when you actually try to look at
I win the debate. That's the title of the debate. Thanks a lot.
Standing for truth. You got to let him finish.
Remember, the predictions have to be peer reviewed, or you fail, and they aren't peer reviewable, so you fail.
They've been peer reviewed.
No, they haven't. That's the point.
Yes, they have.
I've already confirmed this many times. Every biologist in the world has confirmed this. They don't make peer-reviewed results. It's just like making shit up. They take a magic 8-ball, they make shit up. Sometimes they get it right, which is totally fine. But the method they're using is just like shaking a magic 8-ball. It's just making shit up. The scientists actually need to verify the methodology that is used to make predictions so that it can be shown to make consistent, correct predictions. And it doesn't work. Every time we look at the creationist methodology, it's bullcrap making shit up. Like Stephen Myers, for example, his model of the information in DNA is complete crap. It's conflating two kinds of math, the Kolmogorov complexity and Shannon complexity, and it's been shown to create a Berry paradox, which just mathematically fails 100% of the time. It can't be used because it fails. And the same thing applies to all the other creationist models. They just fail when you try to actually verify the methodology. Now, can you make lots and lots of predictions? There's tons of creationists, and they're making all kinds of predictions. Are some of them right? Yeah, absolutely. Does that have anything to do with creationism? No, because we can't verify the methodology. It's just like shaking a magic 8-ball and you get some right. Congratulations. You've got to go through the peer review process. You have to show the methodology being used can work consistently. And every time it gets put in the peer review process, it fails 100% of the time. That's why no serious biologist anywhere in the world is a creationist.
So you can make assertions all you want. You can say the same things over and over again all you want. They've been through peer-reviewed process. One paper by Dr. Nathaniel Jensen is currently going through peer-reviewed process on a testable prediction in regards to DNA. That's what's inherited. Evolutionists have failed prediction after failed prediction after failed prediction. Our predictions is like me pointing at somebody on the street and saying, you're going to hit a baseball this far. Evolutionist predictions is like looking at somebody and seeing them hit a ball 35 times and then guessing what they're going to hit next. It's not precise. It's not specific.
Process.
Nothing to guess. And that's why they have so many failed predictions.
Give me the paper. You said this has been through the peer review process. Is it in a biological journal? Is it in a science journal? Is it a nature journal? Is it in one of any of the academically peer-reviewed journals that aren't creationist nonsense journals that have no validity at all? Where is the peer-reviewed journal?
These predictions in regards to, say, the helium found in Earth's rocks, the presence of radio halos in metamorphosed sandstones, cold material that I talked about from Earth's crust near the Earth's core, those are in peer-reviewed journals that aren't creationist journals, but the creationists are the ones making the predictions.
Give me the... Well, yeah, you can be a creationist and make predictions, but you can't use creationism to make predictions. So give me the journal.
Sure, I'll give you the journal. I'll give you all the citations afterwards. And you know what? When that prediction comes true with when it goes through the peer review with Dr. Nathaniel Jensen, you'll be the first one I I give it to.
That's
Here's
epic.
another prediction here's another prediction that we can make that anybody can test. We predict based on the creation model that creatures, animals, they will self-adjust to changing environments by the same engineering principles as human design adaptability. Because if we're made in God's image, we can get an idea for the way God created us by the way we create, whether it's modes of transportation, just human designed adaptability mechanisms. And we've actually seen this. Are you familiar with epigenetic markers and the changes that we're seeing based on these epigenetic tags?
Yep, and those have absolutely no corollary to human design at all. Those are purely random natural processes. There's absolutely nothing design related to them.
No, actually it's not, because you can even look at something as simple as diet, which alters our teeth, swimming alters our spleen size, high altitude alters our chromosomes. These changes we're seeing based on our epigenome, they're not random. That's the point. They're non-random adaptive changes that are perfectly consistent with the prediction that I just gave you in regards to animal kinds adjusting to environments based on the same engineering principles as human design adaptability. Look at
right there. That part you said based on human design, similar to engineering, that doesn't happen. Human design engineering is based off of an intellectual design of where you think of something and then you put it into action. That doesn't exist in biology anywhere. There is no corollary to biology anywhere to that. There's no similarity to engineering and human design to anything in biology. There's no.
Of course, we can see specific fish that enter cold climates, and all of a sudden they adapt to it right away, way quicker than evolution.
That's not how human design engineering works. That's not
markers. This is exactly
that has nothing to do with human engineering. You keep saying that. Okay, so we go into an environment and there's a genetic change that is very specified. Okay, that has nothing to do with engineering. Engineering is we think about stuff, we design a change. Biology is changes happen in the genes. There's no thinking.
Right, but we're predicting that we predicted that these changes are based on adaptive mechanisms. Human engineering, for example, look at cars these days. They're engineered with built-in adaptive safety mechanisms that turn on based on the environments around you. And this is exactly what we see in the adaptations observed in animals today. For example, Aaron Ra, he will cite 5 or 6 examples of beneficial mutations. We now know that those so-called beneficial mutations are not even mutations at all. They're based on epigenetics. And these epigenetic markers, they act to control and regulate the activity of our genes, right? So they're influencing our physical appearance in the same way our genes do. But there's no change, Tom, to the underlying genetic code. Perfectly consistent with our prediction.
Okay, so you're affirming the consequent. You're saying that there are adaptive mechanisms in genes. Therefore, it's like human adaptive mechanisms. No, humans design things based off biology, not the other way around. So the fact that we have adaptive mechanisms in engineering does not mean it is a feature of human engineering. It means it's a feature of biology that we copy. So you're affirming the consequent. That is not saying they're the same or that they're both from some kind of designer. That's not evidence at all. And we do predict that in evolution. It's purely predicted by evolution all the time. So
that's why evolutionists are always shocked when they discover that a lot of these so-called mutations are actually just based on epigenetic tags.
They're not.
Oh, no, they are shocked. You can see how shocked they are. Look at these. Are you saying that they weren't shocked? Wait, I don't want to ask you a question. Are you saying that they weren't shocked when they realized and discovered that these endogenous retroviruses have very, very significant functions?
No, they weren't shocked. That's just something creationist nonsense say. They're saying that biology is cool. Yes. Are these predicted by evolution? Yes.
No. They've actually stated.
Oh my God, this can't be explained by evolution. That's not a thing. That is not a thing in biology.
Of course they're going to have. No, these endogenous retroviruses, they've always stated, should be non-functional evolutionary leftovers. They're based on retroviral infections in history. Now we know that they have crucial functions that help. Let me finish my sentence, please, because then I lose my train of thought when you're interrupting the whole time. They help regulate genes and even determine cell types. Now, evolutionists, yes, they've had post hoc, ad hoc rescue devices. For example, they'll say, oh no, these endogenous retroviruses have been co-opted, but that's just uninformative gloss. It's post hoc, ad hoc.
No, that's wrong. Again, that was already predicted. That was already predicted.
Just to be sure that Standing for Truth had a chance to finish that thought. You good?
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that these endogenous retroviruses, they act to distribute regulatory information. They confer genes with new patterns of expression and function. They're important in the placenta, the embryo. Evolution has never predicted this. That's why they've had a rescue device of co-option. That's not true.
Again, so none of the technical data helps you. None of the technical data helps you. The more stuff you say about technical data is just all stuff that proves you wrong. So just like people said, oh no, the gene had, like, what was it, the ENCODE project, which said that there's no function. Oh, evolution predicted there would be no function, but there's function. It's the exact same kind of nonsense. No,
No,
you're
it's not,
using
it's not nonsense because, okay, I want to ask you a specific no, Tom, I want to ask you a specific question so we can have a head-to-head prediction and a head-to-head testing of our models. How much of our genome, the entire genome, non-coding and protein coding, whether it's function in expression, whether it's function in the embryo, how much on a percentage-wise do you think or predict is functional?
Why are you asking me? Asking a biologist.
I have asked a biologist. I have asked many biologists and scientists, and they all say it has to be under 20%, non-coding and coding. We've predicted, based on the created heterozygosity hypothesis, that the majority, over 85% of our genome, non-coding and coding, has some type of function and purpose. I understand evolutionists have said there's some function in the non-coding regions, some, but no more than 20%. That is literally, we can do a head-to-head comparison of these models. Over 80%, less than 20%. Those are total opposite predictions, Tom.
Yes. Yep, they are. And the evolutionists were correct. The creationism was wrong.
No, the evolutionists have been wrong. They're wrong more and more every single day. Endogenous retrovirus.
This is why you don't understand, because you're conflating different definitions of function. Nope. So, again, you're proven wrong. Proven wrong again, because you're conflating different definitions of function. This is why.
No, I'm not conflating. There's non-coding DNA, and then there's protein coding. Yes, the evolutionists have said that there might be some function in the non-coding
DNA. This debate has been answered.
This debate is the vast majority.
Standing. All of the technical data proves you wrong. All of the technical stuff has been answered by biologists over and over and over again. The ones that make predictions are the evolutionists. If you want to make a prediction about all the technical stuff, go bother P.Z. Myers and go publish papers. I don't need to do that because it's already been done. So my point is that none of the creationist models can be peer-reviewed. You can't find a consistent system in any kind of creationist model that can be used to make new predictions. It's just like shaking a magic eight ball.
I don't want you, just wait. I don't want you to slap around. This is why you never answer my question. Our last debate was 6 months ago, and you still don't have an answer to how much of our genome, non-coding and protein coding combined, is functional. You always say, oh, the evolutionists never said that all the non-coding.
I'm a biologist.
I've never said that.
I don't even care.
Biologists say less than 20% is functional. And they are wrong, because we have biochemical evidence that over 80% of it is functional. But that's biochemical.
No, the ENCODE project was proven false. The ENCODE project was proven false. All of those were proven false. There's a reason evolutionists reject that. Are you kidding me? No.
How many gene knockout experiments have been performed on humans and mammals?
Again, any technical data.
It's premature to say that the majority of our genome is non-functional.
None of the technical data helps you at all. None of
course. Are you kidding me? Of course it is. All of this data that's coming out is in technical journals. And even evolutionists are admitting, oh, wow, our genome is a lot more functional than we've ever thought.
Creationism. So again, you want to take up those things, go write a creationist model that can be used to make peer-reviewed predictions, put it through the peer-review process, demonstrate it can, that's evidence. Until you can do that, you got nothing.
No. We've already made the prediction that God is not going to produce Adam and Eve adults without any pre-existing DNA differences. Therefore, we've made a prediction that the vast majority of our genome is functional, and this is exactly what we are seeing more and more every day.
You've got nothing. Again, none of that has ever gotten through the peer.
All you have, Tom, is assertions. You won't even answer my question on how much of the genome is functional, because you know if you give the wrong answer.
Not a biologist. Again, I'm not a biologist, so stop asking me about technical biology questions. Go ask a biologist.
What we will do
is... You want to know a specific prediction, though, and I'm trying to give you a specific prediction.
I don't want a prediction. I want peer-reviewed prediction. I want an atheist to read the creationist model and to make a prediction.
No, you know what? I just want prediction. At this point, I've given you retrodictions, postdictions,
not evidence,
testable predictions, future testable predictions that have been confirmed. You have an impossible criteria because you are holding to your basic worldview.
No, this is not in any way. No,
uniformitarianism. Yes, this is a
fact.
You
do this all the time in science. Every single peer-reviewed paper can be done. Can this happen in science? You read the model, you look at the consequences.
Oh, you there, Tom?
Got a little bit of
I think
we maybe lost Tom. Let me check. We got him back. All right. Go ahead, Tom.
So again, none of the creationist models have ever been able to do just what everything else in science can do. You say it's an impossible standard. It's not an impossible standard. It's the most easy standard to meet ever, because
Yes,
everything
and your standard's already been met, but then you keep just
No, it hasn't.
asserting
Look,
that what I'm saying is wrong, which you just admitted that you don't understand it because you're not a biologist. We've
Say it's
made
met the
specific predictions, mutation rates,
You
mutation
just
rate,
said,
DNA function.
stop. You just said it met the standard. If it's met the standard, show me an atheist who can read the creationist paper and make a prediction. Show me the peer-reviewed paper where atheists have said, yes, this model can be used to make predictions.
Okay, so an atheist with a biased worldview, you got P.Z. Myers, Herman Mays, who won't even discuss these predictions with Dr. Nathaniel Jensen. He's invited any of them to do so, but yet you want them to look it over, but they won't. They refuse to because of their basic assumptions.
1 sec. We're going to Tom, if you want to finish that thought, I'll let you finish that thought, Tom, and then we're going to go to the closing statements. As long as, if you can do it, do me a favor and let it be a quick one, please.
So it doesn't have to be an atheist. If you can do it, a Hindu can do it. If a Hindu can do it, if a Buddhist can do it, if a Jainist can do it, if anybody who isn't a creationist can look at the creationist model, say, yes, this can be used to make predictions, that counts. The reason I'm using an atheist is just as an example. It doesn't need to be an atheist. And yes, P.Z. Myers and all the guys have looked at the models and they've shown their faults. So again, just show me people who aren't creationists who can look at creationist models and make predictions. It's never happened. That's the problem.
Gotcha. We will now move into the closing statements. So this will be 5 minutes from each speaker. My assumption is Tom started, so we'll have Tom go through the first closing statement. It'll be 5 minutes, followed by Standing for Truth statement, which will be 5 minutes, followed by the Q&A. So setting the timer. Thanks for your patience.
Yeah, so my entire statement is just, can creationism, like anything in science, you can just give it to anybody in the world, they can all test it, they all get the same results. Doesn't matter. Pick a paper. You do it. Doesn't matter if you're a Jain, doesn't matter if you're a Hindu, doesn't matter if you're a Muslim. You pick the paper, you do the method, you get the same result. Creationism can't do this. The only people who can get results from creationist models are creationists. When you give it to anybody else in the world and they try to make sense of it, it's just gibberish, like shaking an 8-ball and saying, I get made up results. That's it. That's my problem with creationism. The reason it doesn't have evidence is because no one else can use it except the creationists. It's kind of like Jonathan Smith. Only the Mormons can read the golden plates. They're not really very good. They're not evidence. You got to have something that other people, peer review, can use that aren't of your same ideology. That's the part that creationism fails 100% of the time, everywhere.
Was that your 5 minute statement?
Yep.
Okay, you got it. So Standing for Truth, resetting the clock, and the floor is yours.
Okay, so as I've said, numerous predictions that are both novel, predictions that have been confirmed, retrodictions. I can go on and on about retrodictions in regard to mitochondrial Eve, Y chromosome Adam, the low genetic diversity that we actually observe, which points us right back to Adam and Eve, which the evolutionists can't explain. Low genetic diversity, that doesn't make any sense according to their model, which is why that they've resorted to post hoc, ad hoc explanations, rescue devices of a population bottleneck. But then this population bottleneck would have been genetically compromised. So evolution, that type of ape to man evolution, only happens in the imagination of those that want to believe in it. I've given numerous predictions that have been confirmed. The rapid reversal of Earth's magnetic field, I didn't even get into based on the flood model. The cold material from Earth's crust near the Earth's core, that's been confirmed. The presence of radio halos, helium in Earth's rocks, the strength of several planets, magnetic systems. That was confirmed based on the Voyager 2 measurements. For example, the numbers that I was trying to talk about, Dr. Russell Humphrey's prediction that he made, the numbers that resulted not only matched the strength of the known magnetic fields at the time, but also successfully anticipated Voyager 2's measurement of the magnetic field of Uranus. I think this was in 1986, and Neptune. So these results, everything that I've talked about in the fields of genetics, in the fields of biology, astronomy, they confirm the biblical-based model. And that specific one also helped confirm that the solar system is really young, as the Bible claims. Now, Dr. Nathaniel Jensen, who's made these specific predictions, the debate title is, do creationists make testable predictions? Well, maybe TJump should have made the title a little bit more of a mouthful because of all his criteria, but I have met the standard of the debate. I have made numerous testable predictions that you can go look at yourself. And I've got so many more as well. When this peer-reviewed paper comes out regarding the history of civilization found in our DNA, then TJump is going to have to admit, yes, this was confirmed and totally meets his standard. For example, DNA function, which he won't give us an actual number for, because he knows that based on biochemical evidence, based on accumulating papers that suggest that the vast majority of our genome is functional, once again, he's going to shoot himself in the foot, because that's a total opposite prediction that evolutionists and uniformitarians would make. But evolutionists can't make any real testable predictions. They made a few predictions based on bones found in the dirt, for example. Tom will point to some transitional fossils that may have been found. But at the end of the day, these types of predictions, they are literally like me looking at somebody hit a baseball 50 times and then predicting the average or the next hit that they're going to make. These are not precise and specific like our predictions. For example, these transitional fossils, I mean, I can easily arrange a bicycle and then a tricycle and a four-wheeler. We've got 2 wheels, 3 wheels, and 4 wheels. Well, at the end of the day, I can then put a 2-wheeled bicycle and a four-wheeler and predict there must be a 3-wheeler somewhere out there. Lo and behold, there's a bicycle that meets that prediction. These are not specific. These are not predictable, okay? The predictions we're making based on genetics, genes, that's what's inherited. These are precise and these are specific. And at the end of the day, the title of the debate, do creationists make testable predictions? Well, the answer is yes. I've given many. I've given ones that have been confirmed, ones that will be confirmed that are through the peer review process. I win the debate. I understand Tom has to deny the evidence. He has to ignore the evidence. He can't answer straightforward questions about DNA function.
1 minute left.
Because then he's going to admit at the end of the day that he lost the debate. So we can do a head-to-head comparison of our models based on DNA function, but these evolutionists, they, like P.Z. Myers, for example, he's been invited by Dr. Nathaniel Jensen. Richard Dawkins has been invited. Dr. Stefan Fellow has taken it up in written form. Go read it. Herman Mesa has taken it up. There's been a written rebuttal to that as well. Go read it. Nobody has debunked what he said. Predictions are coming true. They continue to come true. So it was actually a fun back and forth, fun debate. Let's go on to the Q&A. Thanks for doing it, Tom. Thanks for setting it up, James.
You bet. Thank you very much. And we will now read off the super chats. So thanks so much for your questions, everybody. And it was a wild one. So it was a spirited one, which we appreciate. And with that, Roy Lindsay, thanks for your super chat. They said, standing for truth's interpretation of the evidence is simply false. How do you like them apples standing for truth?
I'll be crying myself to sleep over that super chat.
Next,
you'll have to prove that they're false. Oh, go ahead, James.
Vibrant Brantley, thanks for your super chat. He says, it could have been my audio. He says, is he using a dolphin call as a microphone possibly? Haha, very funny. But it does remind me, I want to say thanks so much for everybody. When you remember when we had those audio problems? I just look back and I'm like, I'm thankful for you guys. Thanks for sticking with us. Roy Lindsay, thanks for your super chat. They said, standing for truth, why does the PhD biochemist Cy Gart in the chat say genetics is testable or has testable predictions which prove evolution? Are you able to comprehend facts?
Well, I've already gone over their so-called predictions based on fossils in my closing. So their predictions are weak. They're actually not predictable. They're just guesses that once in a while come true. Everything in regards to junk DNA has been overturned. Their chromosome 2 fusion, endogenous retroviruses, pseudogenes, genetic markers, whether you look at the gulo pseudogene. These are all their so-called best evidence, DNA level nested hierarchies. They've all been overturned. All failed predictions. We are the ones making predictions in genetics. Dr. Cy Gart, who I believe works for BioLogos, has admitted that Dr. Vanima, who debated Dr. Jensen for 4 hours, lost. And Dr. Cy Gart, maybe he should take up Dr. Nathaniel Jensen's offer and talk about these predictions. Because I will say, in regards to testable predictions, creationists are winning big time.
Next up. Thanks. Let's see. Thanks for your super chat, Jay Shy. They said, can Standing for Truth make a phylogenetic tree based off DNA sequences that shows or predicts we will find separate created kinds unrelated to all the others?
Very, very good question. So nested hierarchies, DNA level hierarchies, whether it's in nuclear DNA, whether it's in mitochondrial DNA, creation predicts the exact same thing. Therefore, we need to go to a testable prediction that can differentiate between the two models. And Dr. Nathaniel Jensen has made predictions. He's given a testable model on how we can use genome sequencing, phylogenetic, systematic methodologies to find out what is related and what's not related. I've actually got his specific predictions here. For sake of time, I'm not going to read them, but I will post them in the one of his technical papers in regards to it. Has to do with the function of DNA differences. It's like 52 pages, extremely technical. I'll post it after the debate if people are actually interested in discovering how we can see what's related and what's not.
Gotcha. One quick thing, just because Sai has been on before, and he just wanted people to know. He said, I actually don't work for BioLogos, so just wanted to get that out. And Steven Steen, thanks for your super chat. Oh, wait, we're jumping the gun. Sorry about that. Brian Stevens says, right now, Standing for Truth has 0 goose egg peer-reviewed citations. Thanks for your super chat, Brian Stevens. Standing for Truth. Thoughts?
Actually, I do have a ton of peer-reviewed citations here. I can easily post them afterwards. For sake of dead air, I don't just, take 20, 30 seconds to post every single 52-page technical paper for people to read. This one from Dr. Nathaniel Jensen that deals with mitochondrial DNA function, nuclear DNA function, that can help us distinguish between what's related and what's not. I'll post that. Brian Stevens can go read it. I'm sure he's not going to understand much of it, but if he does, set up a debate with Dr. Jensen and talk about these predictions, because nobody else is. PZ Myers isn't.
Gotcha. Next up, thanks for your patience as we get to the next one. Crackerjack 12 says, Standing for Truth already won this debate. Call it off, James. Oh, they're coming at you, Tom. Tom, you want to make a response?
I gave my criterion for what counts as predictions in the beginning. If it doesn't meet all of those, then it's not a prediction. Simple as that. Like, the point of predictions, as I stated, was to differentiate between what's imaginary and what's real. And if you can't meet all of those criteria, it doesn't do that. Like, the point of me going through the whole explanation of saying I can predict the sun will come up tomorrow is that anyone can predict it, which means it doesn't show your explanation isn't imaginary, which is why you need some criteria that other people who don't agree with your delusions can actually use to verify. So everything in science, you can just give it to anyone in the world, even creationists, and they can confirm it. They can use the same methodology to come to the same conclusions every time, no matter what. Creationism, no one but creationism can use creationist models to make predictions. It's like a magic language that only creationists can read, apparently. Just like kicking a magic 8-ball, somehow they get consistent results, but no one else does. Wonder why.
Gotcha. Let's see. Speed of Sound, thanks for your super chat. They said, question for Beta, Standing for Truth. I made up the beta part. He didn't really say that. Sorry. Okay. So just stirring the pot. Okay. He said,
you make it fun, James. You make it fun.
He said, if there are no beneficial mutations, then how did endogenous retroviruses end up mutating to have a function?
That question's for me?
Yes.
That's what I would like to know. So a lot of these, whether it's the ALUs, these transposons, the endogenous retroviruses, now that we know that, let's say the transposable elements, for example, they're a very important source of tightly regulated, biochemically active, non-coding elements. And these are extremely important for numerous reasons. I can go on and on and on, but the evolutionists have to say that they were mutated and then co-opted to have these functions, just like these pseudogenes, which we now know are not actually genetic mistakes that are inherited from our so-called common ape ancestor. They're actually DNA elements that are important to sustain healthy life processes. They have to say those were co-opted as well. It's all post hoc, ad hoc reasoning. So these DNA elements, like endogenous retroviruses, they're evidence for design. God obviously put them there for various reasons, and because of the fall in genetic entropy, there has been disease, say, associated with some of these, but yeah, no evidence for evolution.
Gotcha. Thanks so much. Next up, Movie Theory. Coming at you, Tom. They're talking some smack. They said James put Tom out of his misery. Has getting crushed. I think so. I think they meant he's getting crushed. Tom, thoughts?
Can you hear me right now?
Yes.
Okay. What did he say?
So James put Tom out of his.
Did he make an argument at any point? Or was just saying?
No argument. I think they're trying to troll you, Tom.
Yeah, so essentially Standing provided absolutely nothing that can be confirmed by other people. It's like if you say you have a made up language that is somehow coherent, but no one can actually read it except you, it's probably not coherent. That's creationism.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. Steven Steen, thanks for your super chat. He said, James is my rescue device. I don't know what that means, but thanks, Steven. It's off-putting every time. Sigifredo Sarabia, thanks for your super chat. He said, TomJump, you use, quote, induction, claiming evidence today to prove human evolution. If we can't observe this evidence, does it mean we are evolving right now? If not, how do we make the connection? If so, what will we become?
Yes, I'm using induction. Yes, we can observe it right now. Yes, we are evolving right now. We can confirm that with testable predictions that can be confirmed by anyone, because anyone can use the model to make predictions that will get positive results anywhere in the world consistently, unlike creationism. Does that answer your question? I hope.
So Sigifredo always likes to keep us on our toes. I think that might have.
James, can I give just literally a 15-second response? I promise.
Short and snippy.
Short and snippy. I want to just say, because he mentioned human evolution and Tom says that we're still evolving. We've always predicted that humans and apes are not related, and they've recently discovered fossil footprints that are identical to human footprints. They've been found, and guess what? They're dated to be 5.7 million years old, and that means that they were found in older layers than Lucy, our so-called ancestor long ago and far away. So at the end of the day, evolutionists are scrambling to find an explanation for this one. Looks like human evolution's false.
I think I remember those human footprints with those dinosaurs. Yep.
No, sure. Not those. No. That's
no. I know it's a joke. It's the same.
I get you, Tom.
Gotcha.
Tricky.
Yeah. Cy Truth or Cy Gart. Sorry about that. That's a weird Freudian slip, maybe
Cy Truth.
Cy Truth. I think I was a combination of standing for truth and Cy. It's for standing for truth. He says, do you follow the ICR model of environmental change? And in parentheses, he puts, as you mentioned, with epigenetics. And he said, or the AIG model that doesn't agree with this.
Right. So I would say that the model that I was putting forth regarding to adaptive change, we can see that a lot of change is non-random. For example, the epigenetic related changes that we see. But I do agree that natural selection and mutations can also lead to change. Some of it may be random. I think he might be talking about, I think there is a specific scientist that says all changes are non-random, but predictions have been made on that. We'll see if they come true, but we are finding out that a lot of these changes are really non-random. It's like they were pre-programmed to adapt based on the surrounding environment. So I would say my position is a combination of both. Not strictly non-random changes. I think there are some random changes as well.
Gotcha. Thanks so much. And Jay Shy, thanks for your super chat. They said, standing for truth, if majority of the genomes are functional, then how do you explain the huge genome in amoebas compared to ours? We are clearly more complex.
Right. So genome size doesn't necessarily correlate to the information, like especially with amoebas. I mean, gene duplications do occur, which can actually like duplicate almost entire genomes. And but at the end of the day, the predictions that we're making, especially in regards to the human functionality or on mammals and animals and such, we're talking about predictions in the embryo, in human development. But amoebas, onions, these types of I guess plants, animal species, they don't have brains. They don't have a lot of the organ systems that humans and other mammals will have. So their genome systems, I would imagine, would be based on totally different DNA function related predictions. But good question. There are some anomalies there for sure.
Gotcha. Thanks so much. Next up, Henrik Simonson. Thanks for your super chat. They said, when will creationism benefit biology or science in any useful way? Standing for truth, what have you got to say?
creation science based on the design model. I mean, we talked about epigenetics earlier and how these epigenetic markers are now known to act and control. What they do is they regulate the activity of our genes, right? It's our epigenome. And what our epigenome is doing, it's influencing our physical appearance in much the same way as our genes do. But what's nice is that there's no change to the underlying genetic code. So the more we study our genetic information system with a design model related mindset, we can see just how functional our genetic information systems are. And that directly comes from the thought process of intelligent design and biblical creationists, because evolutionists do believe that the majority of the genome is junk, over 20%, 80% of it is junk according to them. So they're not expecting that type of genome-wide functionality, but we are, and that advances science, James.
Gotcha. Next up, thanks for your super chat from Sigifredo Sarabia again. He strikes again. This time it's standing for truth. He's taking a swing at you. He says, why do we have stacked earth layers and regions like sand dunes or lakes in comparison to everywhere else from a single flood? Why is it now a mush?
Can you repeat that question? What's the anomaly he's having?
I don't know what a mush is, but I do think the first part is they're asking, like, if there's this flood that happened, like, it's the same flood in the sense that if it's global, it's like the flood happened everywhere at the same time, right? Like, in at least broadly speaking. So they say, why do we have, if that's the case, why do we have stacked earth layers and regions like sand dunes or lakes in comparison to everywhere else? So I think they're saying, like, why is it that some parts of the earth have stacked earth layers and regions like sand dunes or lakes, but others don't?
Right. So, I mean, we do see worldwide sedimentary strata deposition. We do see these pancake layered rock strata. Then the things he's talking about, I mean, if it is worldwide, depending on what the earth was that way, the pre-flood earth, I mean, there's going to be different parts of the earth that are covered in different levels of water and different types of disasters going on. I mean, I'd have to look exactly at the situation he's talking about, but I can direct him to like Dr. Andrew Snelling, for example, or Dr. Steve Austin, where they actually work oftentimes in the field and look at specific, I guess, situations like that. But yeah, if it's a worldwide flood, I mean, there's going to be different observations worldwide. Everything's not just going to be the same, but definitely the rule is, right, the majority does oftentimes prove the rule, is that we do see this worldwide strata deposition, and the rock stratas themselves do point to a global flood. But some of those specifics, yeah, I think I'd have to just point him to some of the creation geologists and their technical work. But good question. Thanks, James.
Gotcha. Dora and Nuku, forgive me if I mispronounce it, let me know. Thanks for your super chat. They said, next debate should be young earth creationism versus old earth creationism with totally different creationists. That would be a fun topic. I don't think we've done that topic in a long time. By the way, something like it might happen. There's like a small possibility. I mean, we got to see if they'd be willing for it, but there might be a big debate, something like that coming soon. And I'm kind of
that'd be fun.
Stay tuned.
That'd be fun.
And Steven Steen, thanks for your super chat. I don't know exactly what this word means. I don't know what the cool slang is. He says, standing for truth proved creationism can make incorrect testable predictions and met his, what's a BOP? Is that some sort of
burden of proof, I believe.
Oh, I looked it up on Urban Dictionary, and that's not what I read. So, therefore, I thought it was way worse.
Something naughty attached to it, too. Yeah, I'm not too sure.
Everything on Urban Dictionary, any definition you put into Urban Dictionary, you'll find that there's some way in which that word is used as some sort of like sexual maneuver. Okay, Steve, so he says, therefore, won the debate. Sorry, Tom. Sorry, standing for truth. What do you both think about that? Looks like Steven he's throwing his poop at both of you. You guys got responses? He said,
can you read the whole thing again?
Standing for truth proved creationism can make incorrect testable predictions and thus met his burden of proof. Therefore, he won the debate. Sorry, Tom. Sorry, standing for truth.
So Stephen is being pedantic like Steve McRae, and he doesn't actually use logic in the way he forms words. So when we're saying does it make predictions, if it can make false predictions, well then that's kind of pointless. Anybody can obviously make false predictions. So in normal conversation, we usually infer there's some kind of meaning there, indicative of truth. So unlike Steve, who has his head up his ass, you have to actually infer reason and logic and common sense into the meaning of those words.
Okay, you bet.
I would say, yeah, it seems like most people, at least viewing, probably atheists as well, can see that the burden of proof has been met. The title of the debate is, do creationists make testable predictions? I think Tom realized that, oh no, yes, we do, and a variety of things, future testable predictions. So everything Tom says is 100% false. I have met the burden of proof here. Creation scientists do meet the gold standard of science. We're actually the ones making the specific predictions, but for debate's sake, obviously Tom needs to, put forth the arguments and be aggressive at times to make it fun. But definitely met the proof for sure.
Gotcha.
So no, Standing never met the burden of proof there. Again, you have to make them. The other people have to be able to verify them. As I proved, if you're the only one who can read the magic scrolls to make the predictions and no one else can, that isn't evidence. So it doesn't.
Everybody else can.
This is the golden standard, and every scientist everywhere in the world has already said nope, creationism can't do this. So you got to find an atheist, find a Hindu, find somebody somewhere in the world, some scientist who isn't a creationist, and show me that they can do this. Show me. Tell me. Find me an example.
You can say those same sentences over and over and over again, but it doesn't take away the fact that I have met the burden of proof and I've given you many testable predictions.
You got to give me an example.
Like,
you got to give.
1 second.
You have to give me an example.
So sorry, you guys. Someone summoned Steve McRae. I enjoyed it though. You had to say his name. So I bet Steve McRae is gonna pop into the live chat and start talking smack. Oh man. We hope you're doing well, Steve. Tom loves you. It's like a love-hate relationship. It's very complex. I mean, but they really do love each other. It's like a father-son thing, you know. It's a twisted one, but. We definitely are. We're gonna move to the next super chat. What was it that I saw that just made me laugh? Oh, there's a super chat that I have to. We're gonna come back to Jay Shai. I promise we got that one from you, but I have to say it because while I can remember it, Garfield Lasagna. Thanks for your super chat. By the way, huge Garfield fan. Said, "Hey, standing for truth. I reported you to the ADL because your avatar is blackface." I think they're joking. Don't worry. Because your avatar is technically black, I guess blackface. But the point is,
what does that mean exactly?
Well, because blackface is usually when a white person paints their face black, and your superhero person clearly has a literal black face. So it made me think of something though. That namely, I don't think I doubt they really reported you, but it made me think of we just got reported. I won't say the name because I'm not trying to put the person down, but I mean if if there's a reason to report us. But if you're like, man, James just kids, it's just he's standing for truth. I just see him get angry. Is that if you are pissed at the channel, pardon my French, so that's if you're angry at modern day debate, if you're like, oh James, because we had that debate a week or two ago with Jill and Vosh, which was a fiery one, and it was on whether or not Trump is racist. And someone reported us. They said, "Hey, you just platformed a neo-Nazi." I don't know if Jill's a neo-Nazi. Frankly, I doubt it. I don't agree with what Jill says, but nonetheless, I'm like, I don't know if Jill's really a Nazi. But the point is, if you're like, "Oh man, James, you make me so mad," if you want to debate on modern day debate, whether or not I'm, platforming the wrong people or something, I'm open to that. So I would rather you just, if you want to come on and debate and say, James, I want to make the case that you're doing harm to society because you platform these people, I'm totally open to that. I'm willing to debate that myself. Tom, did we just lose you? Where'd you go? Tom, you're standing really still. Oh, okay, I think you're back. So the point is this. I'm open to defending via debate, modern day debate, when we do controversial stuff. It'd probably have to be winter break because it's really busy now, but just want to let you know that. Speaking of the idea of reporting people, with that, Thanks so much for your super chat, Jay Shy. Coming at you. They said, how does Standing for Truth explain de novo gene birth? Hopefully I pronounced that right. Is it de novo?
De novo gene synthesis. See, once again, that for the most part is ad hoc, post hoc, because from my understanding, I guess I would possibly need him to be in here to clarify himself, but there's something called orphan genes, and these orphan genes, once again, are a fulfilled prediction based on the creation model that talks about created kinds. Because these orphan genes, they're fully functional gene sequences that code for both a functional messenger RNA and a protein, but they lack similar counterparts in other organisms. So there's orphan genes specific to humans, orphan genes specific to, say, some of the apes. So that's actually evidence against common ancestry with humans and apes. So they have to look to de novo gene synthesis to explain some of these orphan genes. But it's circular because they see orphan genes exist. Therefore, they have to have an explanation. De novo gene synthesis. And de novo gene synthesis exists because there's orphan genes. So it's just circular. There's no real empirical, testable, and verifiable evidence for it. It's just all post hoc, ad hoc, as TJump likes to talk about.
Thank you very much. We next up, Patreon priority question. Basically, if you hadn't heard, we do have a Patreon, and if you basically there's like different tiers. One of them, you get to ask, if you ask a question, it goes to the very top of the list. And Patreon, or I should say, like of standard questions. Brian Stevens, thanks for your question. He said, for Standing for Truth, your views on genome sequencing and bioinformatics work of your views on the work of Professor Eric Lander of the Broad Institute and MIT regarding genome sequencing and bioinformatics, which demonstrates common ancestry. Forgive me, let me read that one more time. Sorry, I think I screwed that up.
Is that a statement or a question?
Question. They said it's a statement. It's kind of half and half. They say Standing for Truth's views on genome sequencing and bioinformatics work of Professor Eric Lander of the Broad Institute and MIT, which demonstrates common ancestry. Okay, so I think he's saying like your views are like borrowing from a person whose model demonstrates common ancestry. I think they're saying that.
Well, I mean, yeah, they can use genome sequencing. That's how they build these phylogenetic charts that they'll look to nested hierarchies on a genomic level, whether they're looking at the endogenous retroviruses or specific genetic markers. They can look at SNP, and they're comparing all the different organisms and building their trees. But as I've stated, the genome sequencing, when utilized, actually demonstrates common design. I mean, you can look at the Hox genes. You can look at so much in the genome that suggests limited ancestry versus universal common ancestry. But for the most part, DNA level nested hierarchies, say whether in mitochondrial DNA or nuclear DNA, it's agnostic to the debate because both evolution and creations for the most part can explain it. That's why we need to look at predictions and data that differentiate between the models. And that's where, specific predictions on DNA function come into play. Most debates that I have, the debaters don't want to discuss in detail DNA function, but DNA function really is what can distinguish between the models in regards to genome sequencing. So, I mean, his statement or question, whatever it was good, because that is key. It's 100% how we decide. So thanks, James.
Gotcha. Next, thanks for your question. I wanted to push this to the top because I was wondering, do people have interest in this? Josiah Johnson asked, is there an MDD Modern Day Debate Discord or any community outside of live chats? So we are on Facebook, on Twitter. Not a ton of conversation goes on there, to be honest. Most of it goes on in the live chat and the comments. However, if people would be like, oh man, if you actually had a Discord, I would totally enjoy it. Then I'm like, sure, like I've thought about having one, but I don't know enough about it, and I just feel like a rookie. So I was like, should I do it? Like, I don't know if people would do it, but if people would like a Discord for Modern Day Debate, I'm totally open to it. Just wanted to, it's good for me to get your feedback on like what would be a good use of time. So thanks so much. Next up, I'm going to try to get through just a couple quick questions. Sorry, guys, if you guys are okay with it. We've got several more. But God of Spaghetti, thanks for your question. They said, for Standing for Truth, could you list a few of your sources?
Sure, I can. Let me see here. I got all my sources here. What does he want me to do? Does he want me to post the links? I mean, I've got sources from peer-reviewed technical journals, obviously creation related, as well as articles, especially on endogenous retroviruses that I talked about. What else did I talk about? DNA function, epigenetics. These are all papers that are not, from creation peer-reviewed journals, whether it's from Nature. So, I mean, I can post the links if that's what he wants. Maybe I'll just post the links after the debate in the comment section. There's a ton of them.
Gotcha. Next up, I'm going to try to just read through maybe like one or two more. Sorry, guys, that we're not getting through all the questions. I'm trying to just going through the top ones here. Emotionally Sensitive Emoticon, thanks for your question. They said, let's see. I'm going to try to actually look for some that might be for Tom, too. They just, I want to push this up. Crackerjack12 says, Tom, do you realize the topic of the debate is not, quote, can atheists use creationist models to predict? It's, can anyone use creationism to make predictions?
No, it's can anyone who isn't a creationist use creationism to make predictions? And the answer is no. Just nonsense.
The answer is yes, not nonsense.
Next
Give me an example. You still provided no evidence of that. So
TJump's arguments the entire debate are just assertions. When I ask him to provide specifics, like, hey, what arguments does P.Z. Myers use? He says, I don't know. Like, imagine I came to
relevant to debate. You keep talking about things that aren't relevant to debate.
Dr. Tompkins said you're wrong about the chromosome 2 fusion, and someone asked me, well, what does
not relevant to debate? Not relevant to debate.
I don't know. Go look at it. It's not a good way of debating, Tom. Even the atheists.
That's not part of the debate. Not part of the debate. Not
understanding the predictions is not my problem. It's actually yours, unfortunately.
That's not part of the debate. Again, give me an example of someone who isn't a creationist who can use creationist models to make predictions. You can't.
I've given you many. You not understanding the model is not my problem. It's yours. I'm sorry.
You're the non-creationists who use creationist models.
You're in scientific denial, Tom. I can help you with that.
I'm going to let Tom have the last word on this because the question was for Tom.
Okay, Tom, you can have the last word.
So again, the evidence is if you want to show creationism isn't just made up bullcrap, you have to show that other people who aren't creationists can use the same model to make predictions. Every time I've asked for an example of this, he's given me nothing. He said, here's a creationist who made a creationist prediction. That's great. That's not evidence. Give me a non-creationist who can use creationist models to make predictions. That's all I want. That's the peer review. That's what it means to be peer reviewed. You can't do that. It's just gibberish nonsense.
Gotcha. We will take one last question. And based on the live chat, a couple of people said, like, hey, I would enjoy a Discord. So I'm going to try to get a Discord up in the next week. And then if you guys would enjoy it, please come hang out. So with that, I think we read that one. Emotionally Sensitive Emoticon, I think I was about to read yours. They said, stand for truth, so you love genetics. Can you predict if Haldane's dilemma would not be problematic if applied to variation within quote-unquote kinds using a 6,000-year time scale?
Well, Haldane's dilemma has to do with the limits of evolutionary change in regards to beneficial mutations and the speed of beneficial mutations. So when used on humans, in regards to human ape ancestry, it actually demonstrates that the speed at which these beneficial mutations would happen makes it impossible. But his specific predictions that he's asking about in regards to other animal species, I don't think that those predictions have been made or that information and data has been looked at. But I'll look into it. But what's important is that it has been looked at in humans and in apes in regards to their ancestry, and it demonstrates that it's impossible. And the evolutionists can still choose to believe in it, but it's not empirical science. It's imagination. It requires imagination to believe what is contradictory to empirical science.
Gotcha. We want to say thanks so much, everybody, for being here. It's been a blast. I love reading through the live chats, trying to keep up with it. It's been a lively one today, and want to say especially thanks to our speakers, who I really appreciate you guys being here. It's always a pleasure to have you guys on. You guys are fervent, passionate fellows. And so thanks so much for being here. Their links are in the description. So if you are like, I like that, I want to hear more. Or maybe you're like, standing for truth, I just want to go to his page and just rip him. Well, his link is in the description.
Well, there's many that do.
So want to say thanks for being here and keep sifting out the reasonable from the unreasonable. And as mentioned, if you want a reminder, hit that little notification bell for the Destiny versus Praise debate on whether or not Trump is racist on Monday, November 11th. It's going to be, I think, a very wild one. So thanks for being here, everybody. Take care.